This radio program intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. Marshall Chriswell is certainly one of those, and he joins us this morning. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with me here today. Now, I didn't have a chance to speak with you beforehand, so what's our topic today?
Well, Todd, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the real estate market right now, and also there are some scams that is plaguing kind of the world of real estate transactions that people should be aware of. Okay,
what are some of the natures of those scams?
Sure. Well, I think one of the biggest ones involves wire transfers, and that's not something that most people deal with on a daily basis. But in the context of a real estate transaction, there's money being wired back and forth for various reasons. Generally, getting funds to the closing agent, or usually the attorney that's handling the closing, getting those funds from the bank to the closing agent, or from the client to the closing agent, sometimes from the client to the bank. So there are multiple parties that are involved here, and these wire transactions, the thing that makes them so attractive for scammers is that once that money is sent via wire, rather than a check or something, that money is gone from the sending financial institution. So a client walks into their bank and says, okay, my attorney says that I need to wire them $130,000 as the down payment on my new house. And so the bank officer there will type in all the information, hit send, and it goes through a process through generally most banks have a wire department that will within a few minutes send that wire out to, in this case, it would be my bank where the funds are to end up in escrow. The scam is that the scammers will monitor emails, whether it's they can hack into the client's email, or more often than not, some other entity that's involved in the transaction, and they will piece together. It's very smart. They'll get information regarding the real estate transaction, so that they have enough to compose what looks like a very legitimate email, saying, "Here are your wire instructions. Send the funds for closing to this this bank with this routing number, account number, reference number, all these things." The client receives that email. It looks official, looks very valid. They go to the bank. They say, okay, here's where the money goes, $130,000 in a wire to Bank X, and bam, hit send, and that money is gone.
Yeah.
And with, as with most scams that I've heard you talk about, even with the district attorney and other entities on your show, there's really almost no legal recourse, and so there have been people that have lost, like I said, hundreds of thousands of dollars in these types of unfortunate scams.
Okay, so how do we protect ourselves from that?
So what I do in my office, a couple of things. Number one, I carry cyber liability insurance, which protects the funds once they're in my office. If something would happen, that they would be diverted when leaving my office via wire transfer to go pay off a mortgage or closing costs or something. So I've got that in place, but that doesn't address the problem we just talked about, the client sending funds to me. So what we do is we have a system where if a client is going to be wiring funds to our office, we have to confirm our wire instructions with the client or with their bank via telephone the day that the wire is going out.
Oh, yeah.
So they actually have to talk to someone here, confirm that it's who we are, and then give it to them verbally.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and it's a little old school, but we like it.
You have to be, and it's these scams are coming so far. I mean, it used to be at least if you're somewhat savvy, you'd get one of these emails, and it would be written in broken English from a long lost Nigerian prince or something, and it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, and you could pretty much click the button to delete the email or report it as spam. These crooks have become so savvy. I mean, they will even find and I haven't had it happen to me, thank goodness, but I know other attorneys that their emails have been hacked into. The crook will actually get their logo and the exact font they use for their emails. And plug that into the fraudulent email and make sure and everything's spelled correctly. The address of the property is right. I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty savvy.
Now, tell me about this because I've been hearing more and more about it, and I don't know how legitimate it is. Title lock scams, is that the right phrase? You know what I'm talking about?
Title lock scams. No, I'm not. I don't think I'm familiar with that term.
Title scams, where people, you have your property, you have your title and everything. Somehow they get into courthouse records and they're able to make transfers into of property into their ownership, and therefore you're out of your property.
I have heard of something like that. And I haven't dealt with it personally, but I mean certainly. That's one thing about our system is anybody can walk into the courthouse and record a deed, right? Yeah. I can draft a scammer can draft up an official looking deed and walk into the courthouse and record it or send it in for e-recording, which probably would be more likely in that scenario. And so that would purport then to convey the property interest from one person to another, once that's caught, that should be, if you've remained in possession of the property, right? Sure, if it's your home or another property that you use, it should be very clear as to who has the ownership, and to go back and reverse that, it's just, but you're going to have to deal with, and it's a good reason to have, maybe to have some title insurance as well. Yeah,
and one of the things about that is, like any other scam, there are certain people who are more vulnerable to falling prey to any sort of scam. And
absolutely,
we think of the elderly who might not have the wit to go about something that is such an electronically oriented society now, and so they really don't have the background to handle those sorts of things, which would again be something that we want to call in an attorney on and help us to navigate through that. What are some other scams you're noting?
So the one other one that I had thought of, it's not quite as serious, but it's a scam nonetheless. Whenever you purchase real estate, so you've gone through the whole process. You have your closing. The deed is signed, all the closing documents, and you leave the attorney's office and you go and you move into your new house. Almost all the time now, what happens is within a few days, you're going to receive in the mail an envelope and a letter from a very official-sounding entity. It's generally called the Government Recording Office or something like that, you would look at it and you would think, oh, this is important. And it says, well, we've due to your recent real estate transaction, you'll need a copy of your certified deed, a certified copy of your deed, and please fill out the following form, and we'll send this certified copy of a deed to you for $85 or $100 or whatever it is. Now, this is two-part. Number one, you may be giving them some personal information by filling out that form, and of course, we're always trying to protect our personal information to the greatest extent possible. But also, it's a total scam. Your attorney that represented you for closing is going to make sure you get the original deed, not even a certified copy, the original deed back, and that'll be totally for free. Okay, so you don't have to pay for the deed, and like I said, also the giving of personal information. So that's a total scam, but it happens in every single transaction now. So I always try during at a closing, to point that out to the client before they leave my office. Listen, you're going to get this letter. It's not from me. It's not from the government. Shred it, throw it away. You're going to get your deed back within a week or two.
Talking with Marshall Chriswell for just a few more minutes here this morning on Indiana in the Morning. So, Marshall, we have heard from you quite often that anytime you're doing any sort of a transaction of a property, that you need to have an attorney involved in right from the start. I'm sure that you would just strengthen that argument with what you've said today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many, whether it's these types of scams I'm talking about or just other pitfalls that occur during the course of a real estate transaction, starting with the agreement of sale. As I mentioned to you in the past, Todd, I don't know how often, it's very often that I get folks that come in and they've got, I say, well, I'm purchasing property, I'm selling property. Do you have a sales agreement? And the answer is either, nah, we know each other and we're fine, we don't need a sales agreement, or here it is, and it is a handwritten on the back of a receipt, or a napkin or something, a sheet of notebook paper that lists the parties and the address, and they both signed it.
Yeah, and that's just not going to cut water. I mean, cut water. How do you cut water? It's just not going.
It won't cut water. I promise you that. And the agreement is what drives the entire transaction. That is the roadmap for the whole transaction. So there are things in there that need to be spelled out.
Real estate law is really, really technical and far too technical for most laymen to handle, isn't it?
It is. There's a reason that whenever you're in law school, you take not one semester but 2 semesters of property law. You spend an entire year of law school studying property law, and that's just a testament to the fact that it is a very complex area.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with that. You don't want to try to do it by yourself. I've told you before about the piece of property I sold to a guy once, and I think it was around $130,000, and he brought a crumpled up old check, and he wrote the amount on the back of his hand. Probably not the best record keeping out there.
Probably not.
Marshall, if folks want to learn more and get to know you and maybe get you involved in their legal transaction, what do they need to do?
You can always call me at 724-465-5826. Stop and see us here in the old R&P Cole headquarters on Church Street, 655 Church Street in Indiana, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Beautiful. Have a great day.
Thanks, Todd. You too.
Bye now.
Thanks, Todd. You too.
Bye now.
Thanks, Todd.